Well, we're going to follow up on the Palestinian issue in a minute, but do you see what's happening in Lebanon as a proxy war between Iran and the U.S. fought this time on Lebanese territory?
I think that it's a part of a larger ideological struggle where people are willing to use agents of violence in order to achieve their political objectives. And so whether it be Lebanon, Iraq, or the Palestinian territories, you're seeing this type of strategy play out, and a lot of it is fueled by Iran.
What measures would you take to pressurize Syria or Iran regarding the action of Hezbollah in Lebanon?
Well, we're taking pressures, as you know, through sanctions, which sometimes are effective, sometimes aren't. And what's very important during this period, Nadia, is to remind people of the truth and the realities on the ground to encourage them to be more tough on implementing these UN Security Council resolutions. And you know, obviously we're trying to solve problems diplomatically. I mean, it's important that we work with friends and allies to see if we can't convince the Iranians to stop funneling monies to these violent groups, or to, you know, stop their enrichment, excuse me, suspend their enrichment activities, or in Syria's case, to put financial pressure on them to adhere to the UN Security Council resolutions regarding Lebanon. And we've been successful sometimes, as I mentioned, and sometimes we haven't, because sometimes commercial interests, you know, don't take the threats nearly as seriously as you do or I do. And so it's just a lot of work to keep the pressure. But to me, that's the best way to try to solve these problems, is through diplomacy.
So there is no selective military strike that could be considered?
Well, there's always, as you know, there's always that option. If I made it very clear during my presidency, that option is on the table. And of course, you know, I've also always said diplomacy is our first choice.
Some will say that Iran is establishing a foothold in the Mediterranean, whether it's happening in Lebanon now and the seizure of Gaza to a certain extent by Hamas. How would you kind of react to Iranian influence in the region?
Well, it's clearly there, and first thing is to tell the truth. That's why I'm glad you're asking me about this question, because I want people who are listening to understand that it's the Iranian influence that is creating problems for the Palestinians trying to have a state. I mean, it's interesting that there's a two-state solution on the table that needs to be negotiated. I readily understand that. They can negotiate the boundaries, negotiate the refugee issue, negotiate the other issues. But as those negotiations go forward, there are Iranian-backed groups trying to kill people, to stop it, trying to create enough violence and confusion so that the peace talks don't go forward. And it's just a clear example of why the Iranian influence needs to be dealt with. And the United States is very much involved with doing that through, for example, success in Iraq. And we're trying to stand with our friend, not trying, we are standing with our friend Sonora. We're analyzing ways that we can continue to do so. And I'm going to the Middle East to talk very clearly about the Palestinian state and how I'd like to get it defined before I leave office. And I think we can. I think we can.
But the fact that you don't have a trilateral meeting between yourself, Abbas, and Olmert, some will say it's like...
Yeah, no, but don't read into that. I mean, look, I think I can be plenty effective meeting with these leaders. And remember, Condi's over there meeting. The main negotiators, by the way, happen to be Sivi and Abdullah. And they're talking all the time, and we're trying to, you know, get their data, get where they are, and bring it to the leadership level at times. And the leaders are meeting as well. So it's a very complicated process. And I don't think necessarily not having a trilateral meeting should be read as anything, you know, other than that it just didn't work out. It's not a sign that the talks aren't going forward.
My time is over. They give me the 2 X's. But can I
Yeah, fire away. Of course you can.
Okay. Thank you, sir. You know, I mean, some will say that you were the first president to call for a Palestinian state. Yet, people did not see a tangible results on the ground. You're going now in a very tough time.
Yeah.
Prime Minister Olmert is facing corruption charges. You're celebrating 6 years of Israel independence. For the Palestinians, 6 years of misery. What can we offer tangibly on the ground to the Palestinians that will say, George Bush did this for us?
No, I appreciate that very much. One is a security force that can respond to the you know, Prime Minister Fayyad's work and President Abbas's desires. I mean, it's in other words, people want to see whether or not the state is capable of protecting them, and therefore, as this Palestinian force gets more capable, we expect the Israelis to move back you know, to the point where the state can actually begin to function a little bit in the West Bank. Secondly, economic development. I mean, people are wondering, okay, it's great, Bush shows up, he talks about a Palestinian state, but where are the tangible benefits? And so the idea of working these entrepreneurial programs or some of these programs that my friend Tony Blair is doing, who I will meet with, by the way, and just to get a sense for how we can advance them. But I fully understand your question. And your question is, you know, all we hear is talk. Winning we see action. Well, part of the plan is for people to see better life. And the other part of the plan is for there to be a clearly defined state. So it's no longer just a two-state solution. It's here's what the borders will look like, here's how we're going to deal with the refugees, here's how we're going to deal with, you know, the different complicated issues. So people can actually see and analyze, do I want this or do I want what's happening in Gaza, for example? And given that choice, I'm confident, having met a lot of Palestinians and know the Palestinians fairly well, about how people just want peace. They want their children to grow up in peace, and they want to be able to make a living. Look, the Palestinians are very entrepreneurial and people. They know how to make a good living, and that's all they want. And moms want their kids to go to